Drew, great to see you.
It's great to be here, Joe.
I appreciate you carving out some time. So, hey, listen, when you and I were sort of brainstorming what we wanted to cover today, we kept on coming back to incident response and how the MSPs and the small businesses out there, the day of the incident, they really struggle. But maybe the reason is because they didn't do proper preparation early on. So before we get to the incident response portion of the conversation, tell me a little bit about what you're seeing from the partner community and the SMBs out there in terms of preparation and what may not be happening in the market.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that we're seeing a big disparity, in the partners who have taken the time to kind of prepare themselves for the conversation. And then the partners and even the SMBs from a customer standpoint that haven't, because when you start getting into incidents and you start getting into problems and, let's be honest, right? We all know that at some point, we're all going to deal with an incident at some point. The world is too much about that. The amount of preparation you put into your mindset almost, what's important to you, if you have to bring things back up, what should you bring up first? Who owns what do you even have? Right. I mean, to me, that's, we start talking about protection and those kind of things. It's wild the number of people that don't even know what they're protecting. And truthfully, if you don't know what's there, you can't protect it. Right? I mean, to be honest, and that's really kind of what it comes in. So we get in from an IR standpoint or helping people walk through, do they even have a breach? Right? Is there really a problem? Has there been an incident inside their environment? And oftentimes they don't know because they don't really know what the possible doors and what their exposure are. And it really creates challenge.
Got it. Okay. So let me talk a little bit about checklists or ask you about checklists. And I'll put it in two columns, right? There's sort of the list of the infrastructure and the application and all the IT stuff, right? So step one, should the MSPs be taking inventory of all their customers and everything they're running? And then to your point, maybe doing an audit with that customer and saying, hey, what are the most important applications or services that should an incident happen, these are the ones A, we have to protect, and B, bring up first?
Oh, definitely. Matter of fact, if you look at like some of the frameworks that are out there, like CIS as an example, right? The first 2 points are auditing what you have from a hardware, from a system standpoint, and then auditing the software that exists there. And I think one of the challenges around it, just a response standpoint, is sometimes as MSPs, we get focused to what we're being paid to protect or what we're being paid to even support, right? The challenge is if I look at a network, everything that has an IP address is actually an opportunity for a risk, right? So sometimes we say, well, I'm not being paid to support that, so I'm not going to inventory that. But guess what? When something bad happens, trust me, they're expecting that you protected everything. And so we really need to take a more holistic approach to what we're looking at. And yeah, I may not patch it, I may not be responsible for it, but I need to raise to my customer, hey, this could be a vulnerability, this could be a security risk, even though it may not be something I'm responsible for. I mean, my background, I did a whole lot of, when I owned an MSP, I did a whole lot of automotive support and things like that. And there might have been mid-range systems, AS400s, other systems that I might not have had direct support for, but trust me, they were a vulnerability, right? You had to make sure they were patched. And so we really need to be aware of everything that's there and understand what it means to us.
Okay. So as the MSP, let's assume best practices. They took those inventory steps with the end customer, right? Does the MSP then also create, once you get past the technology side of the conversation, the people and process side of the conversation, should MSPs be identifying who within the end customer is responsible for each system, be it a business leader, a technology leader, et cetera? Like, is there a checklist of people that will be involved at the end customer during a response?
Yeah, I think that they, one, should understand roles and have that conversation with their customer. Because, when they get into it, I think that there's probably 2 levels. I hear MSPs all the time, or, well, if I'm going to help somebody build a full incident response plan, maybe I should be paid for that, right? Because it can get very detailed. But I think at a simple level, there should be, what's the minimum you as an MSP need to know that if an incident happens, even though they may not have put a full incident response plan in, which hopefully you can help them walk through that and understand where that is, but to help understand, who are the roles, who are the players, what systems exist, and what's the priorities, just from a business standpoint, forget technical, right? From a business standpoint, does payroll need to come back up first, or does the line applications that drive a manufacturing facility need to come up first. What is it from a priority standpoint that's the lifeblood of that company, and help understand as you're triaging that process later, because you don't have time in many cases when the incident happens.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's assume the MSP has created this list working with their end customers, but taking inventory of the hardware, software, all the systems, et cetera, but also assigning people and processes to make sure that there's a good map of like workflow and everything in terms of who's going to be involved on an incident response or a recovery. But here's the thing though. As I cover the market, and you know me, I'm not the most technical guy in the world. I know enough to be dangerous. Everyone in the world is announcing what I would call MDR, managed detection and response, right? But that response piece, I think, is the trickiest piece because it means so many different things to different people. And then there's the incident response piece of response. So that's a bit of a ramble in terms of like, tell me a little bit about where ConnectWise plays here. How are you helping the MSPs and how are you not? Maybe there's certain areas where you're just not going to get involved.
Well, I think when you look at the response side of the process, right? So MDR, like you said, means so many different things. It also means, what tools are involved in that actual managed delivery, right? So some cases we're talking about more of a SIEM oriented type environment where that is. In some cases, it's more on the EDR side, right? The endpoint side of where that is. In some cases, it's both. So I think that when you start talking about response, it's understanding, okay, for that vendor you're talking about, what are the capabilities? What are they really looking at doing? And then, from a ConnectWise standpoint, when we really look at it, when we're talking about MDR, it's about really seeing what's there, monitoring what's there, making a decision to help a customer when they see issues, partner, whatever, when something pops up, that we're actually engaged in the conversation with them and helping to make, those steps to stop whatever the cycle is that's allowing an incident to happen, right? So do that, and then help guide that partner through the discussion, because sometimes it's not something a vendor can resolve. It's a lot broader maybe than the service and where that is, but be a part of the discussion and be a part of the solution and what's there, at least to the degree that we can be, and where a partner is, and be a sounding board and be a voice of experience in that discussion, not be, and this is one of the challenges I think we see in a lot of places, our goal, let me say it this way, is not to fire an alert and then be done with it. And right. I think in the channel space, that's a real risk, right? Because not all of our partners know exactly what to do with a certain alert when it comes in. We want to make sure we're providing value as you look at that and what that is as you carry it forward. And then incident response, to jump into that, really kind of goes to the next piece, right? So now something has happened, whether it was something that we identified, whether it was something the partner identified, whatever, or got reported to them. It's now about, okay, how do I actually go to the degree of solving for an actual real incident? So it's now beyond an alert. It's now beyond protection, but we know something's happened. How do we actually help them guide through that process to solve those issues?
Got it. Excellent. So I'm curious, you're a veteran of this industry. And I think when we think back to the earlier days of managed security, a lot of it was, there's still a lot of people involved, no doubt. But I'm wondering, in your journey, how much have you seen automation really move forward, both for the MSPs and their end customers? Is automation playing a bigger and bigger role in response and incident response? Or is it just the human element that's still the most important factor? Where would you put it all?
So I'd say it's both. So, right. So I think from an automation standpoint, being able to pull the noise out, to be able to collect information faster, to be able to analyze information faster, help to drive to an actual conclusion that I can take action on. From an automation standpoint, it's being able to pull all the millions of lines of information into a decision, right? And a lot of that starts with automation, right? That helps to limit the playing field so that you have a security analyst or somebody or an incident responder that's looking at just the pertinent information. Then's when the human element comes in, right? Because then at that point, it does take a certain level of experience to bring, in some cases, things that you can automate versus things that you can't today, at least, and be able to make a learned decision about how do I prioritize some of the information and even the cultural aspects of a specific customer and their needs, and bring that back to a specific action on, well, do I start here? Can I turn service back on? How clear am I? What's the risk? And have the real risk conversation with with somebody who's impacted, because oftentimes it comes down to, you believe you're clean. What's your confidence in that information? What steps have you taken? And now what risk are you willing to take on as you move through that process in recovery?
Got it. Excellent. Okay. The other thing I found reassuring in the market, things aren't perfect, but we do see progress in that. I think, listen, for example, the vast majority of MSPs, I think at this point, have some sort of business continuity and or cyber resilience strategy in place, and have either made the move or are thinking about how to extend from antivirus to endpoint detection and response, et cetera, right? As the MSPs go on that journey, I'm curious to know, are you on the incident response team able to integrate in with both the existing cyber portfolios that the partners have and some of the new stuff they're rolling out? And where do you fit in terms of the ecosystem?
So I think in a couple of different places, obviously, to go back to the term you threw out earlier, we have our own MDR services that are built around managing both SIEM and EDR services that we offer and what that looks like.
Right.
But also when you look at it from a SIEM standpoint, we highly use we eat our own dog food, right? We highly use a lot of that. So for companies, we'll filter a lot of data into our SIEM for analysis, bring in the integrations we have with all sorts of different cyber products across the space so that we can analyze in one space, correlate in one space, look at that information, and then drill down to where are the real issues that are happening during an incident. So we'll use those tools to our benefit from an incident standpoint, and be able to pull that together. So if we go into an environment and we've got the ability to pull in data from one of the tools or a group of the tools that an SMB or somebody has deployed, then we're going to pull that data in so that we can start using it to our benefit. Because when you start getting into an incident, it's not just what I see today, but the more history I can get, if it exists, to analyze, the more it helps me understand what happened earlier on. So it's one piece of protecting, it's another piece of being able to go to, if you can figure it out, root cause and what protections I need to put in place to stop an attack from happening again.
Right. So, the mainstream media, anytime there's a big cyber attack, right, they'll call it a global 2000 company gets hit. The coverage will always mention 9 times out of 10 that the victim, the target company, has hired a third-party incident response firm to assist, right? But that's mainstream, publicly held, massive companies. Are you, with the incident response service, able to bring it down market to even the smallest of MSPs, or are the smallest of MSPs, is that not really a target for this?
No, it definitely is something that we can bring downstream. So we work with very small organizations to very large organizations. So I've got MSPs and SMBs that we work with in a number of different pieces there. So we've tried to position the service so that, as you look at an individual MSP that maybe has either a group of customers or a small set of customers, or where that is, we can provide a manageable format that they can have us either on retainer, or they can call us at point of incident, right? Either one, depending on what's going on. And engage us to be able to assist them. So we've tried to put that in a space that it's easy so they understand what it is. So we take some of the complexities away. I mean, some have to still exist, right? But do everything we can to make it, at least in the mindset, be in the verbiage of the MSP space and what they're used to seeing, and understand what those are.
Got it. Excellent. So for the MSPs who are watching this and or reading the blog, or maybe tuning in just via audio, is there a particular URL or website, or where should they go for some more information if they want to check out more incident response information?
Yeah, so it's really simple. If they just go to our ConnectWise.com website, and at the top on the menu, click solutions and pick incident response. It'll walk them through, it'll give them the different options, understand what we do with our solution, what the different ways they can engage with us are, and then guide them through either from if you have an immediate incident that's in a problem, there's a link there to say, hey, I have an emergency, help me now. There's also a link to help just start the conversation if you want to look at, well, what's a more longer term relationship look like, that might reduce the cost, but, obviously has a commitment. So there's some different ways to engage with us on what that looks like.
Fantastic. Well, Drew, it was really nice to catch up with you today. Thanks for your time as usual.
Oh, I appreciate it, Joe. Anytime.